Well, we're here to say hello to you and talk about local currency. And I'd like to start by actually having the head of our local currency fund that I often refer to as our local Bernard Bernanke. Introduce herself and what she's doing with our local currency so that we can try to convince you that you can do this in your own communities, states, and local government areas.
Thank you, Bob. Hi, I'm Deneene, and I am the Director of Equal Dollars Community Currency here in Philadelphia. And I've been doing this dance with local currency for about 4 years now.
Right.
And one of the things when I first started here at RHD is that Equal Dollars has been around since like the mid-90s. But when I started, it was a little defunct. We had some vendors, some small vendors, and I could get a purse and I could get a t-shirt and I can get some of those frivolous things, but I couldn't get food. I couldn't get prescription medications. I couldn't get health care. And so one of the focuses was to let's use our currency to get basic goods and services, so people could get basic goods and services using the equal dollars.
And Deneene mentions those things because by now we have all those things being traded in our local currency system, which actually has grown under Deneene's direction to 1,600 members, individuals and small businesses, and this corporation itself, as well as 1.6 million in trading value if we were to value it in US dollars. But we've done that as we built to that point. 1.6 million being traded in value between individuals and each other and the corporation. And we've done it on an annual basis with only 200 units of equals being exchanged.
200,000.
200,000. So you do that arithmetic yourself and you say, oh my God, they've produced a currency that has 8 times the value of the local currency that they issued themselves and is issued as a loan to the individual members or to the organizational members without interest or fees, and is exchanged with checks or cash, not coin, that's not permitted by the federal government. And in some circumstances, because of our obligation, we're paying the state, city, state, and federal taxes on some of the issuance because it's coming out as salary.
Bob, I think that you said something that was really important. You said without interest, and I think that's the key here.
Yeah.
And when we talk about why local currencies, why we think that nations, the United States government or Congress people, lawmakers should say, we want our state, we want our cities, we want our municipalities to adopt a local currency that doesn't have interest, because we found that in the US dollar economy that is issued as debt with interest, that it is not designed to address some of the social problems that we have here.
Yeah, actually that thinking is not new to us, but it may be new to some people. That was observed in the early 1900s by a person named Sylvia Gazelle, and he wrote a book on it. And others have talked about it. And that is that you cannot do the social things. We're slightly changing what he said, but you can't do the social things you need to do in a society if you only depend on interest-bearing currency issued centrally. We're not saying you stop that, it's just that you need another currency, and that's what we have modeled and what we are demonstrating in the United States. The things that Gazelle focused on, we're still focusing on, is that there are certain points in the U.S. interest-bearing currency, and you all know it, where you can't do anything. You can't employ the unemployed because you can't make money from them. If I can't make money from you, I won't employ you. So I not only have to cover your expenses, I have to cover a minimum profit to pay back the interest. And if food is distributed and I can't any longer sell it for a profit, I bundle it up in a dumpster and bury it. And those are two of the things that we've discovered we can bring out and use the energy of, the food, the labor, 200,000 in the labor area, and the remaining part of the 1.6 million in the food and other distribution. Food, bicycles, you name it, and many other things you can do in your own community. None of them are things that anyone would touch with US dollars, because you can't. You can't get the US dollars back and make a profit.
And so what we tend to do, I think, what my observation has been in the US dollar economy is, if you can't make a profit off my labor, I remain unemployed. If the food I can't make a profit off the food, then it goes into the waste stream. But then what people tend to do is they'll donate it out for free, right? And so then we have this dynamic happening where people who don't have enough US dollars are now reliant and dependent upon a system that has to give them things for free. And so, but what it doesn't allow for is for the exchange of value that a community can determine, and that's what a local currency can do. It can help us determine the value in which I have labor, I have time. No one wants to hire me in the US dollar economy because they can't make a profit. But I can work and volunteer at a farm, or I can help my neighbor babysit their children. Is there something that I can do, right?
There's a lot that you can do, and what we're saying is when you start to use a local currency that you produce locally without interest and you don't make a profit on it, you can start to look at what I can pay people to do that is a social benefit to each other. I have a lovely story about one person who, in addition to his job, has started to find that he's enjoying getting bikes that would otherwise go to the dump, repairing them and reselling them for primarily equal dollars. And that person has started to get an honorarium from us in the local currency, enough so that he's buying extra food and donating it to his neighbors. So now, from a person who couldn't get that employment, I have a benefactor who's showing his capacity, and we're honoring that capacity because he's giving to a community.
And so Bob, you early on used to use this analogy, and I think we're going to come back to it right now, right?
Yeah,
so
I know where you're going.
When you're baking a cake, right? You cannot bake a cake unless you have the sugar and the flour, right? Both are necessary. And that's what we're saying, and we're talking about economics. You know what? The US dollar does what it's supposed to do, right?
We think that's the flour.
That's the flour, right?
Yeah.
So you need some sugar. Sometimes you need more sugar than flour. Sometimes when you're baking a cake, there's equal amounts. But there is that other element, and we're saying a non-interest bearing currency is that other element that's going to help all of our societies, our communities do better.
And we want more sugar in the economy. And we want to help you to do it. We have a grant offering to governmental entities that are in the room or going to see this video, that we will give up to $50,000 as a grant to an entity that seriously will look at issuing a local currency in their community and will help them to do it. But speak to Deneene. She's our banker.
Well, thank you. We hope you found that this was really interesting and informative.